Hello, boys and girls, and welcome to Movie Goodness, where we examine life through cinema here on the KB Radio Network. I am your host, Kevin Reed, and here we are in the month of February 2022, Black History Month, and I am literally, have my head on a chopping block, and I have to do a show like this. I I want to do a Black History show. Just just do a Black History show that is uplifting. I want to do a show that showcase all the great accomplishments that Black folks have done over the course of history. Not just focused on um, what should I say, the civil rights era or during the Jim Crow era, where I would say 90% of all Black history that is taught and celebrated normally revolves around the Jim Crow South. It's not, like Black folks just popped into the picture in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, and everything else was like, uh, 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 we were just around, we were just floating in the ether. But I just want to do something uplifting, talk about the greatness of Black folks, but I can't. Not today. And I tried to avoid this story like it was the plague, like it was the coronavirus. I tried not to talk about this. I even went as far as recording, uh, uh, editing, prepping, all the stuff that goes into getting a show ready to be released to all of you beautiful listeners who continue to come and support this show. But I couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. I I had to talk about this because this is disturbing. And granted, this didn't happen in the month of February. I don't care when it happened, but it's the mere fact that I have to open up the February, the first show in February, the first show in Black History Month, with this tragic story. Yet again, here we are. Here we are, police killing a Black man. And it's this is tragic on so many levels. Uh and there's so much to look into this story where you have to question. You have to question the state of this country. Of course, any red-blooded human being should be questioning it anyway, with all the past trauma that has been inflicted on Black people due to the police. And just every instance is like PTSD in a sense, because every time another case like this pops up, all automatically, at least for me and a good number of Black folks in my family or my friends, we automatically began going back in time, talking about George Floyd, talking about Rodney King, and things of that nature. And we just haven't gotten over it. We cannot get over it, and it's hard to get over something that continues to happen almost every day. I'm pretty sure it happens every day. It's just not reported. This one just so happened to be filmed and reported, and the police officers involved did get fired and arrested, which is rare. This is the rare occasion where where this has happened, and I have a theory onto why. And I'm pretty sure anybody who knows this story of the Memphis police officers who murdered the young man, Tyre Nichols, I'm pretty sure you know why those officers were fired and arrested immediately. But we'll break that down when we go through the story. And I had to do something that I haven't done. I've been promising myself I was going to do. And this was I guess you could say, perfect time to do it. Uh, Our movie today is a film that I've been promising myself I was going to watch. I haven't watched it up until a couple of days ago, and it fit this story perfectly. And it is none other than Fruitvale Station, the directorial debut of Ryan Coogler, and it stars Michael B. Jordan. And I didn't want to go there because I'm tired of seeing this. It took me forever, as I said, to really go over this story. I know the video is swirling out what took place. I have yet to watch the video. I'm not gonna watch the video. I've seen enough of that. I've seen enough of the George Floyd's. I've seen enough of the oh my God, I can't remember the young man's name. Up in Minnesota, who was gunned down. I've seen all those videos, and it's to the point where it's not. I'm not desensitized to it, but I'm like, man, I'm just disgusted every time, and it opens up a level of anger inside of me that, quite frankly, I cannot control, and that's the problem we have with this. And it just adds to the fact when you have people say, "Oh, we just need to get over it," just move on. Are you stupid? We can't move on. How can we move on if you keep doing the same thing? And you being the police, I want to be there for the police officers. We just did a show a couple of weeks ago where we was having a little fun with the police, ironically in Tennessee. We not in Memphis, but Tennessee, in that state, with the woman, with the female officer having multiple affairs with her fellow boys in blue, and we was having a little fun with it, And I said in that show that I'm not against police officers. I'm gonna say it right here. I'm still not against police officers. I don't hate police officers, but but y'all make it real hard, or should I say, you make it real easy for me to hate you. When stuff like this takes place, and I don't know, man. It's just I had to do this show to kind of, I guess, help myself mentally. I had to talk it out. I could talk it out with my wife, and we discussed these issues and stuff like that. But, I have to just unleash. And this is kind of my therapy to do this show. And you are all my therapists. And so I need all of your help to get through all of this. Because I believe I talked about it here on this show before. I'm not 100% certain. But in case I didn't, I'm going to say it now. I've been pulled over a lot. I get, like everybody else, we all get pulled over for whatever reason it may be. I've been pulled over several times, and on a few occasions, a gun was drawn when they walked up to my door, when they tapped on my window. Well, not tapped on my window because I always rolled the window down, but there was a gun pointed at me for reasons, one time when I got pulled over, my license plate sticker had expired. I think it was like a month or two over. It had slipped my mind or whatever, but yeah, police officer saw it, pulled me over, and I was literally a block away from my house. I was on my way home, and the police officer pulled me over and hopped out the car, walked up to my truck, had his gun. I'm looking in the rear view. He had his gun with his hand on his gun, in the holster. And by the time he got to my door, it was out the holster. And at that point, because I was reaching over into the glove compartment to get my, registration and insurance card and all this here, I was like frozen. I was like, should I move? I don't know what to do. I can laugh about it now, but trust me, I wasn't laughing that day. And I'm like, what should I do? And all that just to say, you're your tag is expired. Okay, um, I'll get it taken care of. You're like, okay, get it taken care of. You have anything in the vehicle? Anything like what? Um, any drugs? Any weapons? No. All right, get that tag taken care of. Walked back to his squad car and drove off. I stood there, sat there for a good 10, 15 minutes, just like, what just happened? I don't know. I did not know that a license plate sticker is punishable by death in the state of Louisiana. I was really scared to death. I did not know what to do. There was another instance where I was on vacation with the fam, and we were driving back to our Airbnb, and I had went through this flashing light that night, and I don't know why I didn't stop. It was a flashing light. I really wasn't thinking. I was just trying to get back to our place where we were staying, and I went through it, and the police came, hit his lights, pulled me over. My daughter in the back seat, she took out her phone, she started filming, and that scared me to death too, because I'm like, why are you filming? Are you filming this just in case I get shot or something? It's I asked her that later, and she said, yeah, just in case. Like, okay, thanks, baby. But anyway, he walked up to the driver's side, and his hand, he didn't have the gun out of his holster, but he had his hand on the gun. And I got a ticket, signed the ticket, and went on about my business. I think we were in Texas, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, man, it's every time I see a police officer, it's like, oh my God, you get shaken and scared, and you're not doing anything. You're not doing anything, but it's just the mere fact. You read these stories, you see the videos, you hear the reports, and I've been a part of that. I wasn't doing anything, and you still get harassed by police officers. As a black man, and there are millions of black men driving around this country, walking around this country, just minding their own business, and they're being murdered for no reason other than being black on a Tuesday. And I'm not excluding, and I know there are going to be some of my white brothers and sisters who are going to say, "Oh, that happens to us too." Well, I don't see it. We don't see it. Like, it probably do happen, but not at the rate it happens to black folks. And the moment y'all start realizing that and showing some empathy towards that, it'll never change. Because at this rate, it will never change. But in our latest incident involving police violence, this incident took place in Memphis, Tennessee, and it's disturbing. As I said, the video is disturbing. I didn't watch it. The details, which I'm going to go over, are disturbing as well. So I'm giving this trigger warning, if you will, about this story, in case you haven't heard the story. And we're going to go through it and discuss the events that took place on that evening and go from there. The newly released videos of Tyre Nichols' police beating captured the brutality that his family and authorities have already foreshadowed. He was punched and kicked while being restrained. He pleaded to go home and repeatedly yelled for his mother. And after the beating, while Nichols lay slumped and motionless against a car, officers walked around on scene, ignoring the 29-year-old black man. The videos consist of 3 shorter body camera clips and one roughly 31-minute long video taking from the utility pole camera, which appears to capture most of the violence that unfold just steps from Nichols' home in Memphis. The video shows portions of both the initial traffic stop on the night of January the 7th, and a second altercation just minutes later after Nichols fled the first location on foot. Nichols required hospitalization after the encounter and died on January the 10th. Law enforcement analysts who viewed the clips were troubled by a range of actions and inactions during the encounter, from the beating by a group of officers to the length of time it took for someone to render aid to the motionless Nichols. The video leaves many questions unanswered, including the reason for the stop. While the officers do not explain in the clips, Memphis police initially said Nichols was pulled over for suspected reckless driving, but police chief C.J. Davis told CNN on Friday authorities have not been able to sustain that claim. The clips also do not answer why authorities used such force on Nichols, who did not appear to fight back, and why they felt compelled to confront him twice. But the video do shed light on just how violent the final confrontation was. Here are some key revelations that has came out since the video has been leaked or shown to the public, however you want to say it. Officers repeatedly threatened Nichols with violence. Videos from the encounters captures multiple officers threatening Nichols with violence while he appeared to comply with their commands or is already on the ground. Now, here's the key thing here, and I've heard this said millions of times whenever you hear about an instance like this. Oh, comply. He should have complied. Oh, he should have listened to the officer. Oh, he needs to comply. Now, let me tell you, let me educate some of my white brothers and sisters here, because I'm pretty sure y'all never got this talk when y'all were young. I got this talk when I was young, and the majority, if not all, of young black men and women received this talk. And I'm not talking birds and the bees. I'm talking about what you do when you're confronted by a police officer. I've gotten this talk from my father. I've given this talk to my daughters, because don't get it twisted, females aren't exempt here either. Just ask Breonna Taylor. Oh, you can't. That's right. So we have to give that talk to our children, and we've received that talk when we were children. And so we know what comply means. We know that's what I'm always compliant. Always compliant. I've seen in the past, not in this video, but I've seen in the past where people were compliant. They did everything the officer told them to do, but they're no longer walking this earth with all of us right now. And so that don't mount up to a hill of beans. I just wanted to throw that in, because when that's a trigger for me. That's a trigger word for me. Comply. That doesn't mean nothing. Once an officer said, or anybody, but especially an officer, once they set in their mind they're gonna kill you, they're gonna kill you. That's just that. You could do whatever they ask you to do. Hop on one leg, stand on your head, do jumping jacks, whatever they ask you to do, they still are gonna kill you. A body cam video that captures the initial encounter between Nichols and the police show the officer getting out of his car with his gun drawn. I know how that feels. And captures the officer yelling at Nichols, "Get the F out of the car." Nichols is heard saying, "I didn't do anything." And later, as he gets on the ground, "All right, I'm on the ground." That sounds compliant to me. So why is this man dead? An officer yells at him, "Put your hands behind your back before I'm going to knock your ass the F out." Nichols said, "I'm just trying to go home." While officers yell commands, Nichols repeatedly responded that he was on the ground and is heard saying he didn't do anything before running away as an officer deploys the taser. At the second encounter, where the beating occurred, a body cam captures an officer yelling at Nichols, "I'm going to baton the F out of you," while Nichols is on the ground and not fighting back. An officer is also heard asking, "Do you want to be sprayed again?" while Nichols is on the ground and yelling for his mom. Another point, officers struck him 9 times in under 4 minutes. The video takes from the video taken rather from a remotely controlled camera on a neighborhood utility pole. You know those little. I see them all the time, but they're there. You know, they got those cameras on the pole. That video shows Memphis police officers continually hitting Nichols at least 9 times without being verbally provoked. The pole cam video is one that really justifies the charges, said former Philadelphia Police Commissioner Charles Ramsey. Nobody trains for that. These guys are acting so far out the box that you really can't explain it. One officer kicked Nichols so hard and so much that he limped away. He hurt himself trying to, I guess, punt the boy. Unbelievable. In the pole video, an officer is shown shoving Nichols on the pavement with what appears to be his leg or his knee. Nichols is then pulled up by his shoulders and kicked in the face twice. Then later, is hit in the back with what appears to be a nightstick. Seconds later, he's hit again. Whew, this is tough. This is tougher than watching the video. I'm gonna be honest with you. Jeez. Once he's pulled to his feet, officers are seen hitting Nichols in the face multiple times, while other officers are restraining his hands behind his back. Nichols is seen falling to his knees, and less than a minute later, an officer appears to kick him. Another point, third point from the videos. No one gave aid in critical minutes after the beating. When officers let go of Nichols, he rolled on his back and is then dragged along the pavement and propped up in a sitting position against the side of the car, where he remained largely ignored by the officers on scene. According to one of the body cam videos released, while Nichols was slumped next to the car unattended, officers appeared to say at least 2 officers pepper sprayed him and another tased Nichols. Paramedics appeared to show up on scene about 10 minutes into the video. Roughly 23 minutes passed from the time Nichols appeared to be subdued after the beating before a stretcher appeared on scene. A chief medical officer is reported by saying it's horrible to watch. I can believe it because it's horrible to read. This is one of the toughest stories to go through. You see why I didn't want to really go into this story. Man, this is so hard. What could happen in situations like that, said the medical advisor, is that the brain could begin to swell and there could be internal bleeding. That's why there's timing. The timing is so critical, because if the brain is swelling, he still seems like he is talking at some point, but he was obviously getting worse. The brain starts to swell when you're not getting enough oxygen or oxygenated blood to your brain anymore, and it causes a big problem that leads to death. He just laid there, obviously in critical condition at that point. And paramedics aren't particularly equipped to help someone with these kind of internal injuries. Um, the focus should have been on getting Nichols to the hospital in prep for emergency surgery or a transfusion as soon as possible. But you know, we're talking minutes. He really needed to be treated ASAP, and it didn't happen. Another point that we got from the videos is no officer intervened, and this part here, this is the part where I get frustrated with police, uh, even the good ones. Uh, where are you? Where are the good police when the bad police are doing them? Who's policing the police? You know, who's in the words of one of my favorite graphic novels, The Watchmen. Who watches The Watchmen? You know, that was what that comic book was about. You know, who watches them as they watch over you? Who's watching them? Um, and that's what frustrates me. You know, you call yourself good police officers. You're doing the right thing. There was too many of y'all. All of y'all that bad. It was too many of y'all. One of y'all could have stood up and said enough, or one of y'all could have stood up and said no. You know, nobody intervened. Besides the excessive violence, what troubles a lot of people, including me, is that no officer was willing to intervene and say stop. There's a point where you have to intercede or say enough, you know, or physically step between the officer that is assaulting the person and that actual individual, and that didn't happen. According to the Memphis Police Department policies, officers have a duty to intervene. Any member who directly obstructs another member engaged in dangerous or criminal conduct or abuse of a subject shall take reasonable action to intervene. This is according to a policy page in the Memphis Police Department. Five Memphis police officers, who are all black, by the way, were fired earlier this month for violating police policies and were each charged with second-degree murder, among other charges. And this is the part where I teased early on. You see how quick they jumped to action here? Now, rightfully so. All this is, they should have been fired. They should have been arrested. They should rot in jail for the rest of their lives. I'm all for that. But don't you see there's kind of I don't know, disparaging difference when it comes to black versus white? Because white officers get away with murder as well. I mean, they will shoot you in broad daylight. They will choke you to death in broad daylight. They will beat you half to death in broad daylight, and they have no repercussions, none. The most they'll get is suspended. I'm not making this up. Now you can sit there and get mad. You get mad at yourself because you never looked at it that way. Because this is a fact. Had these officers been white, you probably wouldn't even heard about this story, or they would have been on leave without pay as the department conducts an investigation. Yeah, you know the spiel. Y'all all know how it all would have went because that's how it always goes. Now, I'm not taking up for nobody. I'm not saying anything as far as the race is concerned, you know, siding with one side or the other. I'm just stating the obvious here. And I'm not lying. But I'm glad they're locked up. All of them. All of them. And there's a lot more going down. A lot more people are losing their jobs or getting charged with a crime here as well. Two fire department employees who were part of Nichols' initial patient care were relieved of their duties while an internal investigation is being conducted. Um, After the video release, Shelby County Sheriff Floyd Bonner Jr. said he launched an internal investigation that the conduct of two deputies who appeared on the scene following the physical confrontation, both deputies have been relieved of their duties pending the investigation outcome, said the sheriff. So there are a lot of heads rolling for this. Um as I said, this is it's I going through this story, and I've seen pictures, I've seen clips of not clips, but screen grabs from the actual altercation, and just watching the photo, just looking at the photo, is disturbing enough for me. I didn't see any blood or brain matter or nothing like that, but it was just the fact that I know this is this man's last moments, and it's uh, for nothing. Why? I'm still looking for the reason. At least lie to me and say he had a gun, a knife, a butter knife. Hey, I'll take at this point, I'll take a firecracker. He had a weapon of mass destruction. I mean, something on his person. Lie to me. I, I can't even get that. They just beat him because he ran. Okay, he ran. I would have ran too. I'm scared. Do, People don't understand the trauma. They really don't understand the trauma. And I'm talking to the ones who question this, who question his actions. Oh, why did he run? You would have ran too. You would have ran too. I mean, you haven't been through what black folks have been through. You haven't. And the black folks who say, oh, he should have stayed too, uh, get out of that ivory tower and come down to reality. It just haven't happened to you yet. But trust me, it will. It didn't happen to every black person I know. I don't know. I have not met a black man who has not been harassed by the police. I've yet to talk to one who haven't. It's just reality, people. I know it's hard to wrap your head around that reality, but I can assure you that's the reality. But I missed this earlier, and I apologize. I want to give these morons their due. I want to give the devil their due. Here are the names of these idiotic police officers or former police officers who murdered this man. Um, we have Tadarius Bean. He's 24 years old. He was hired in August of 2020. You have Demetrius Haley, 30 years old. He's a former corrections officer. He was hired also August of 2020. Emmett Martin III, he's 30 years old. He was hired on March 2018. Desmond Mills Jr., age 32. He's a former jailer in Mississippi and Texas. He was hired to the Memphis Police Department March of 2017. And Justin Smith, age 28. He was hired in March of 2018. Yeah, these are the morons who murdered this man. Um, they were a part of some type of unit. I think it was hotspot unit, hotspot policing. I think the code name was Scorpion. It was it's an acronym for street crime operation to restore peace in our neighborhoods. I'm not making this up. That's the unit that they were a part of. It was a group of undercover officers assembled in October of 2021 as a response team to deal with serious crimes. Scorpion officers drove unmarked police cars and dressed in plain clothes, wearing bulletproof vests marked police. Yeah, Scorpion. Uh, they were there to restore peace in the neighborhood, and yeah, yeah, yeah. I gotta laugh to keep from crying because I had to stop the show about 3 or 4 times, it's because this is so tough, man. This is tough. Uh, you know, Mr. Nichols, he's from Sacramento, California. He moved to Memphis in 2020, according to the family. He had a 4-year-old son, and he worked at FedEx, and he was a photographer with his own website, and this was a brother who, 29 years old, was trying to make the best out of life, you know, uh, and it was just snuffed out for reasons, and it's hard. Um, it's hard to justify any police shooting, but or killing, but this one here, man, this one here is like, I mean, what? When are we gonna get when is enough with these police? Uh, where's this Blue Lives Matter talk now? Where was Blue Lives Matter when they all fired these guys? Y'all normally stick behind the Fraternal Order of Police, of law enforcement, or whatever it's called. They backed Chauvin, old boy who killed George Floyd. They supported him wholeheartedly. Um, they didn't they but they denounced these fellas. Once again, I got to pull the race card here. That's the only reason I can think of. Because what's the difference? Honestly, what was the difference? There was no difference. there was no difference here. Both were restrained. George Floyd had handcuffs on. I don't see how he was a danger, but there you have it. This young man, he was on the ground. He was compliant. He was yelling out, "I'm on the ground." He was yelling out, "Okay, I'm right. I put my hands behind my back." All this other stuff. He did everything they asked him to do, and he's dead. Yeah, I'm sick to my stomach with it, and I'm to the point. I'm just tired. Honestly, I'm just tired of this foolishness. And day after day, time after time, when we talk about police, and I feel like a fool every time I sit here and got to uh, uh, give a disclaimer. Well, all policemen ain't bad. You know, I I don't hate police officers, and I don't hate I don't hate anybody, but I can have a strong dislike, and I can honestly tell you, I have a strong dislike for the police department. Uh, I cannot take up for it no more. I can't sit here and say that oh, there's some good ones out there. That's the same thing they say about us. you know, there's some good ones out there. You're one of the good ones. I've heard that before. Um, yeah, it's troubling. Yeah, and it's sickening. And I'm sorry this has to keep happening over and over and over. Um, but let's get into the review. Let's talk about this film that I finally sat down to watch. This film, I mean, this incident that took place in Memphis made me finally watch this movie. Um, for the reasons why I didn't want to go through with reading that story or watching that video. It's the same reason I didn't want to watch this film. It's not because I didn't think it was going to be good or anything. I just didn't want to see it because this film is based on a true story, and it is Fruitvale Station. And it was released in 2013, and it is a biographical drama written and directed by Ryan Coogler, who we all know and love from directing Creed, Black Panther Wakanda Forever. Yes, this was his directorial debut, and it is based on events leading up to the death of Oscar Grant, a young man killed in 2009 by Bay Area Rapid Transit police officers uh, at the Fruitvale District Station in Oakland. This film, um, as crazy as it sounds, is not what I thought it was. I thought this was just going to be a film that was set that night surrounded those events. That's a part of the film. It is the film, but it tells a deeper story. This film stars Michael B. Jordan, by the way, Melanie Diaz, Kevin Durant, uh, Chad Michael Murray, and Octavia Spencer. But this film does so much more than just depict the tragic end to Oscar Grant's life. This was more of a deep dive into Oscar Grant's life, and I appreciated it for that. Um, Michael B. Jordan gives a powerful performance here. Um, I always accuse Michael B. Jordan of being the same character in every movie. He's the same in every movie, and in this one, it was a little different. You dig? He actually he did a good job. And I'm not poo pooing on Michael B. Jordan. I enjoy Michael B. Jordan. Um, loved him as Killmonger. That was a change. That was a change up. But uh, here in this film, he did an excellent job. This was just like watching a documentary. The way it felt so real. I guess because it was based on a true story, of course, and Ryan Coogler being close to this because he is from Oakland. So this was a passionate story that he wanted to tell, and I can see why everybody always says that Ryan Coogler always knocks it out the park. Uh, I felt that way, but I couldn't be in that camp because I never watched this film. This is the only film of his I haven't seen up to that point. Now I have seen it, and now I can concur. Yes, he always knocks it out the park. Olivia Spencer was great. The two actors who played the police officers, Kevin Durant and Chad Michael Murray, who plays Officer Caruso and Officer Ingram, respectively, they did a great job. The only difference from the true story is that their names were changed for this film. They were based on the actual police officers who committed the crime, but they, for some strange reason, couldn't use their actual names. But I think if it was done today in 2023, uh, there'd be no holds barred. They'll actually use their real names. But I remember this story vividly when it actually took place, not the movie, but the actual story of Oscar Grant, because this was one of the first instances where, you know, not counting the Rodney King beating, that you saw the video of. It is the first one I ever saw where, camera phones and all this stuff captured the incident. And I remember this happening. I remember watching the news and the clips from it, and it was like, man, they gunned that man down. I mean, uh, for nothing. He was innocent. He did nothing. Nothing that warranted that. you know, warranted him being murdered. And the actual officers, they did later get found guilty of involuntary manslaughter. Um, the excuse was that he meant to take out his taser, but he took out his gun. I always felt that, you know, you should be able to tell the difference. That's what the training is for. But that was his defense, and he ended up serving 11 months in jail for involuntary manslaughter. But uh, yeah, the film as a whole is a real good film. It's not gonna wow you, just one of the greatest achievements in film. I'm not gonna go that far, but it is definitely a really powerful film, a tough watch. It was definitely hard to watch, um, especially if you are a black man in America. This was a horror movie to watch this movie, but I felt compelled to watch it, and I'm glad I did. It was very well made, well directed. You see, why Ryan Coogler is what he is, why he's so sought after as he is, and he rightly deserves to be. Fruitvale Station gets a letter grade of a B plus. I think it's a really, really good film, especially being as though this movie was made for nothing. This movie, this movie was made for under $1 million. I think $900,000 to make this film, and they made the most of it. It really looks like a big budget Hollywood film. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't look like it was a shoestring budget film, and it was it was nice, man, real nice. Uh, yeah, and it ended up grossing I think around $18 million, which made it a big success. That looks like a failure for most films, but that is a huge number if you making this movie for nothing. But yeah, Fruitvale Station gets a B plus. Um, yeah, I remember the Rodney King beating. I remember watching that on the news with my dad when I was younger, and the anger that came out of that, and it not so much the beating, well, the beating, but the aftermath. With the cops being let off, and all the riots and what it sparked, and how people's attention turned to the riots and the looting and all that. Now, yeah, it's bad. I don't support that, but I'm a big component of cause and effect. You don't have you don't beat Rodney King, you don't have the riots. You don't kill George Floyd, you probably don't have the Black Lives Matter marches. There's cause and effect. But you rather there are those who rather focus on what they're doing. Oh, they're marching in the streets. Oh, they need to get over it. Get over it. Why don't you just not do it? Just not do it. We'll get over it. But it's hard to move on when there's a constant reminder every single day, or at least once or twice a month you hear about these incidents between police officers and innocent black men and women. Uh, and I'm these are just the ones that are being reported, because they trust. Don't be don't be so naive to think that these are the only ones who slipped through the cracks here. These are only a couple of bad eggs that we found in the pack. No, there are a lot more. They just haven't got the fanfare as some of these who we see on the nightly news. I'm gonna go over a couple of them, and I'm not gonna go all the way back, because we can go as far back as 1870. Some of the research that I was doing, it goes all the way back that this didn't happen. But let's just start with last year. Let's start with January the 8th of 2022. Uh, Jason Walker. He was 37 years old in Fayetteville, North Carolina. An off-duty sheriff's deputy shot and killed Walker after he allegedly jumped on the hood of the deputy's vehicle. But a witness said that Walker was shot while he was on the ground. On February the 19th of 2022, uh, Donnell Rochester, 18 years old, of Baltimore, Maryland, he was shot and killed by police officers. Officers attempted to perform a traffic stop for failure to appear in court on a carjacking charge. Police shot Rochester after his vehicle moved forward. Um, on a search and siege warrant, officers stated that Rochester had struck an officer, but body cam footage shows the officer said the car did not hit him. On February the 22nd, Tracy Garrett, 54 years old, of Stockton, California, an officer pursued Garrett after she was suspected of hitting a police vehicle in her car. After a pursuit, Garrett backed up into a dead end, and the officers fired 18 times. After firing several more times, the vehicle pulled forward and reversed away from the officer. The officer then fired again over a dozen times, ultimately killing Tracy Garrett. On April 25th, in Indiana. Uh, 39-year-old Herman Winfield. Police respond to a mental health call using a stun gun on Winfield and restrained him despite him saying he couldn't breathe. The coroner's office ruled Winfield's death a homicide and said he died from uh what is it? Cardiopulmonary arrest in the setting of law enforcement subduement, probe resistant, and conducted electric weapon use, which basically mean they tased them to death while being restrained. Oh, on April the 4th, Patrick Lalora of Grand Rapids, Officer Christopher Scherer attempted to arrest Lalora following a traffic stop. The two struggled over Scherer's taser, and Scherer, pretty sure I'm butchering his name, uh, restrained the probe poisoned Lalora, shot him in the back of the head. The officer was charged with second-degree murder. June the 26th of last year, Jalen Walker, 25 years old, of Akron, Ohio. Walker was shot following an attempted traffic stop and foot chase. Officers fired more than 90 bullets at Walker, who sustained 60 wounds. Footage of the shooting was released 1 week later. August the 30th, uh, Devin Lewis, 20 years old, of Columbus, Ohio. Police served a warrant at Lewis's apartment for inappropriate handling of firearm, assault, and domestic violence charges. When police entered Lewis' bedroom, an officer shot him after he sat up in the bed with an object in his hand. No weapon was found on Lewis, but a vape pen was found nearby. September the 14th, in Frisco, Texas, Genesis Hicks, 26 years old. Police approached Hicks after he was accused of using false identification to buy a car from a dealership. When Hicks ran, police tased him, causing him to hit his head on the ground. Hicks fell into a coma and died 2 weeks later. On October the 25th, James Wilbon, 35 years old, of Atlanta, Georgia. Wilbon and a female friend were in a car when Wilbon's ex-girlfriend recognized him and climbed onto the hood of his car. Wilbon attempted to drive off, causing his ex-girlfriend to fall, which was witnessed by an off-duty police officer. The officer approached Wilbon, who exited his vehicle, and the two fought before the officer shot Wilbon. November the 10th of last year, Kyaja Miller, 27 years old, of Detroit, Michigan. Police were called by Miller's mother, who reported her daughter was experiencing a mental health crisis and had been diagnosed with schizophrenia, stating Miller had hit her child. Police found Miller dressed in her underwear, with one officer seemingly hiding behind a tree, as filmed by Miller. Two officers then entered the home and a struggle occurred, ending with an officer shooting Miller, stating she reached for his gun. Detroit Police Chief James White recommended the 3 total officers involved be suspended without pay, although only 2 officers entered the home. On November the 21st, in Monroe, Georgia, Eric Holmes, 19 years old. An officer investigating a stolen vehicle found it in a parking lot. Holmes approached the officer and spoke to him, but did not mention any connection to the vehicle. Shortly after, he entered the vehicle and began to drive away, with the officer firing several shots, hitting Holmes in the back, and Holmes crashed nearby. The officer was allowed to resign before he would be terminated. And this year, just last month, on January the 3rd, Keenan and Alexander, 31 years old, of Los Angeles, California. He is the cousin of the Black Lives Matter co-founder. died after he was tased by Los Angeles police after a car crash. And of course, January the 7th in Memphis, Tennessee, we have uh, Tyre Nichols, 29 years old, and we went through that story. He was savagely beaten by 5 police officers who are currently facing charges of second-degree murder. Uh, we have other members of law enforcement or first responders who have been relieved of their duties as well. I think a grand total of 8 right now, at least the time of this recording. So I know 2 EMTs, 2 deputy sheriffs, along with the 5 police officers involved. It's a mess. It's a big mess with this. But and I was just cherry picking off of names. I would have been here till next week reading all the names of all these victims of violence from police officers. I mean, just last year, I'm looking at 3 pages of names. Um, and God forbid if I went back even further. So this got to stop, man. This has to stop. And I don't even know where to begin. How do you put an end to this? How do you reform the police department? I would love to know. Please, somebody let me know. Let the world know so we can finally put this stuff to bed. Anyways, everybody, how do you feel about this situation? Is it as depressing to you as it is to me? Uh, Let me know. Vent. You can vent to me. I'm here for it. Email the show, kbradiopodcast@gmail.com. Also, look me up on Twitter at KB Radio Network, and you can look up the KB Radio Network on all social media platforms. Don't forget about the 5 stars, reviews, and sharing the show if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or any other listening platform that you may be listening to movie goodness here on the KB Radio Network, as well as YouTube as well. We're there too. Everybody, thank you for joining me today. I do feel better. I feel a little better now that I've talked it out, but it still doesn't solve the problem, and that's ultimately what we want to do. Uh Happy Black History Month, everybody. I wish I could have started off this month with some good news, but a good story, some fun topics to talk about. But this needs to be talked about, and you know, I'll be less of a human being not to discuss this incident and try to find some type of closure. Um, I hope those officers rot in prison, along with all the rest of them that do evil towards other people of this country. Anyway, everybody, thank you for joining me. Thank you for joining me. And check out Fruitvale Station if you have it. It is a real good film. Very good film. Um, Even though it's tough to watch. But hey, we see that every day on the news. We see it anyway. Uh, but that is a good film to watch. Everybody, as always, I love you. Continue to love one another, please, people. Spread the love, man. And until we speak again, you all be blessed.